Welcome to Norway, welcome to Oslo, and welcome to the full house of this session. My name is Harald Lie. I am a partner with consulting company Analysis Mason in our Oslo office. I have spent the last 30 years deploying digital infrastructure in the Nordic countries. And today we have a select group of panel participants who will discuss and describe Norway's digital journey from infrastructure to innovation. We'll start out with a keynote speech and a few introductory remarks. Then I will work very hard to ensure that we have time for questions from you all. And towards the end, we will let the panel conclude. Our keynote speaker is Daniel Norheim. A computer scientist by training and a specialist in the semantic web, David has worked as an IT consultant. He has founded IT companies, and for the last 10 years, he has worked at Brønnøysundregistrene, where he now heads their business development group. Welcome, David. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Harald. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Norheim, and like Harald said, I'm the Director of Business Development at our Register Center here in Norway. We are also one of the founding fathers for our digital, or several of our digital success stories in Norway, which we have the pleasure to share with you today. And before the debate in a few minutes, I will take you through a few of those. Today, we have a Norwegian digital ministry, we have a digital strategy, brand new, we have a digitization agency, but our story starts long ago, 20 years ago, when we started with three visionary men heading three agencies. Today, Altinn is one of Norway's most important digital platforms for interaction between businesses, government, and citizens. But the story began in the early 2000s, where these three men decided that we should report to government once and use that information in all services. This vision sparked a unique collaboration between three public agencies, the Tax Administration, Statistics Norway, and Brønnøysundregistrene Center. But they didn't do it alone. And this is a key to this private-public partnership. We collaborated very closely with the accountants and the public accountants, the associations, to make sure that the businesses used their systems rather than just reporting to the government. These organizations represented the users and professionals that use the system every day. For businesses, this evolved into a place where you today can register a company directly from the systems. You can report annual accounts and beneficial owners directly from the business systems they have. So in practically reducing the burdens to zero for these services. So together we not only build a technical solution, but we build an ecosystem of actors to the benefit of all and to the benefit of innovation. And this collaboration still sparks new ways of collaboration and innovation. Years later, some 5-6 years ago, another unique collaboration started between the public sector and the finance industry. DSOP, Public-Private Digital Collaboration, is a Norwegian initiative where public sector agencies collaborate directly with the financial sector to digitize and streamline key social processes. What's unique about this is that it's, again, a collaboration between leaders and not necessarily top-down collaboration. It's brave leaders that decide to sit together and trust each other, and there's no external funding. They carry their own cost. It's based on a portfolio approach where if you create a service that benefits someone else, the other party creates a service that benefits you. It's an initiative where based on trust, common infrastructure, and achieving common goals. This collaboration have resulted in a large simplification for businesses and citizens. The high bar you see there is just one of the services where you automatically get information directly from the bank, the tax about taxation and salaries, and from there you can automate processes in the bank through consent of the user. And this service alone has created 2.5 billion euro in benefits so far. We also have services where we push our user interface into the banks. When you start a business in Norway today, you don't go to us. You go to your bank and all the services you need is there. We just lie in the back and verify all the information, and you have a registered company in seconds. The centerpiece of all this is trust. There's trust between people. There's trust infrastructure. In this trust, we need an EID system. It's central to know who you're talking to. You need a platform, and you need trustful national infrastructure. And Norwegian trust infrastructure has helped us to deal with crises like the corona crisis, combat cyber and other threats, and fraud. These days, fraud is a very important collaboration. We work together in these collaborations we talked about here to fight the threats together, because the criminals, they are better to work without borders than we are. Norway, we considered us to be an important player also in the national defense. Our role in the economic infrastructure is crucial today in keeping our country up and running during peacetime and war. And countries in Eastern Europe have seen this in a way that digital data and infrastructure need to be in place also when you're at a situation at war. We usually say without Brønnøysund Register Center, Norway stops. Our salmon export, for instance, is depending on this. Next step in our journey is to take our infrastructure out in the European infrastructure or the international infrastructure. And this means that the strong foundation we have today with public-private partnerships and our next generation public-private collaboration would need a cross-border solution. With ADAS 2.0 and digital wallets, we are now expanding our trust infrastructure to the rest of Europe. This is key to opening up our digital services to and trust across border and between businesses and government and businesses and population in general. The requirements for companies' risk management and green transition entails increased burdens. And international trust infrastructure and reliable, verifiable data sources, along with willingness to try out new solutions, as we do with these public partnerships, is key to help to maintain also the competitiveness that is drawn up in the Draghi report, for instance. So lastly, I will just thank you for your attention and say that for us, trust is not only about the infrastructure, it's about the people that work together. In Norway, this has been a very important step, that we don't have this very heavy contracts to work together. We know each other, we can pick up the phone in crisis, and have managed to create good solutions based on these collaborations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. That was quite interesting. I am confident that many of our panelists will have some thoughts in relation to your speech. Let me start out with you, Øystein. You had a promising career in sales and marketing before politics got the better of you. Øystein has worked for the Conservative Party for many years and also for the city of Oslo as Vice Mayor of Health and Social Services. For the last 6 years, Øystein has headed up Abelia, which organizes some 2,800 technology and knowledge companies in Norway. So Øystein, what can you tell us about Norway's digital journey?
Yes, thank you. That's a small task in a couple of minutes, but let me just start to reflect a little bit, and I'm sure we will dive into some various important and interesting aspects of this debate. I think I would actually like to start with saying that much is good in Norway, and if you look at the digitization of the public sector, for instance, and was also described in this presentation we just saw, there we have actually come quite far when it comes to making public services available for the population, for the public, digitally. We are very advanced there. On the other hand, we often say that, well, Norway is the most digitized country in the world, and what we normally mean is that, or the reason we say this is that everybody has an iPhone. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're able to make new businesses and to really transform the economy and society based on technology for that reason. In Abelia, we have been working a lot with the question of the green and digital transition, and we have compared Norway with basically all the OECD countries over 10 years, and we see that we are not necessarily best in everything, as we sometimes believe in this country, both when it comes to adaptation of technology, when it comes to human capital, when it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation. We are actually more or less stuck in the middle in many of these areas. And why is this a big problem? It's a problem because we have the least sustainable export structure actually in the OECD. I mean, it's 0% sustainable. We are depending on oil and gas, fish, metals. We often call it the sardine can economy because it consists of fish and oil and metal. And it serves us well and we make a lot of money, but it's not really sustainable for the future. And the world needs to make the green transition. And as the world does so, the demand for our key products and services are actually fading away. So that was a bit grim introduction, but so that I think there's something I would like to follow up on there. But on the other hand, a key word in the introductory remarks was trust, and I think we have a very good foundation in going through this transition when it comes to trust. We have a very high trust between the government, the companies, the business sector, and also the employees. And we often talk about the Norwegian or Nordic model, and the tripartite system, which I think is an excellent foundation for doing this transition together. So I think I'll stop there, and maybe we can return to some of the more technical aspects also, but that would be my introduction.
Thank you, Øystein. Next one out is Kristin Weidemann, an engineer by training. Kristin helped organize the Olympic Winter Games at Lillehammer before she took a number of technology and management roles at mobile operators, banks, publishing houses, hospitals, and municipalities. Today, Kristin heads up research, development, innovation, and digitalization at KS, the organization for Norway's 357 municipalities and 15 regions. Welcome, Kristin, and please let us know what you think.
Thank you. I would start by saying that collaboration to develop a new digital future happens actually not between organizations as much as between people. Øystein emphasized the importance of trust. And I think that's maybe the most unique driver that we have in Norway to reach our common goals, to develop efficient digital services. It's not only between the state and the municipalities and regions, it's also between the public businesses or whatever enterprises and the private. More than, I think now it's 14 years ago, KS, the Organization of the Municipalities and Regions, actually established a program for innovative procurement, joint with the Norwegian Confederation of Norwegian Enterprises. And the idea was that before you buy something with public means, you have a very innovative and dialogue based way to organize your procurement so that you don't ask what you think you need, but you ask, this is my needs. What solutions can you provide for us? And this has actually, I would say, been one of the major drivers for innovation in the public sector. It's been a big success, both in the digital and the green transition. And it's an example of this collaborative approach and trustworthy way of kind of achieving new solutions. KS is also the formal partner with the Norwegian government for the digitalization of the public sector in Norway. And it's very important because in Norway, municipalities and regions, they have a large responsibility compared to many other countries. Basically, they're responsible for schools, both primary and secondary. They're responsibility for the primary healthcare. They're responsible for regional development, local development, and of course of the democratic processes that we have locally and regionally. Huge importance in Norway, and they have actually, according to law, independence totally from the government. They're only ruled by laws. And the laws are maybe today the most challenging part. We are so detailed, regulated, that it's a problem for innovation. And I think we share this challenge with the private sector.
Kristin, thank you. Nobody can accuse our next panelist of being a disloyal employee. He spent 16 years as a consultant manager and partner at Accenture. He then moved to the savings bank Sparebank 1, where he was the CIO for almost 14 years. And for the last 9 years, he has managed BITS, which is the Norwegian bank's infrastructure company. Its primary task is to secure and strengthen efficient payment services and payment infrastructure in Norway. So tell us, Eivind Hjemdal, what is on your mind?
It's extremely interesting times, and like David presented, we are in a phase now that we are actually digitalizing the whole society together. We have been through phases where we digitalized individual tasks in the companies. We digitalized the processes in the companies. In my industry, the finance industry, we have spent quite a lot of time on making it optimal between the different banks. And now we moved one step up to the fourth level, that we are actually participating from the banking industry in what David presented as the DSOP program, that we try to digitalize all the necessary processes to stay alive in Norway. That we digitalize between the banks, the insurance companies, and other financial industries, and a variety of public sector companies. And I think we are achieving some quite significant successes in that way we are working together based upon trust and our ability to develop solutions, but also to maintain them over years. So the day do you need a register, it's not only made, it's maintained and contains high quality data that can be used for a lot of purposes.
Ivan, thank you very much. Before I introduce our last panelist, I would like to mention we will open the floor for questions. There is a microphone over there. Feel free to stand up and go over to that microphone so that I know we will have a question. For those of you following us on Zoom, I am also watching the chat part of our meeting, so I can take questions from there. But before that, it is a great pleasure to welcome our last panelist. Pål Wien Espen spent more than 20 years at Telenor and was Telenor's global chief legal counsel for a very long time. He has also headed the Norwegian communications regulator, where he initiated the fiber wholesale services, which is possibly the most important regulatory change we've seen in telecoms since the 1990s. Today, Pål is a director with IKT Norge, ICT Norway, which is an independent member organization for technology companies. Welcome, Pål.
Thank you. I assume that you would like me to comment on the main task here on the Norway's journey from infrastructure to the more first mover on content. And I think Norway has a great history of being first movers digitally, being quite innovative also in the public sector by taking, I would say, bold moves and decisions in particularly some agencies like Brønnøysundregistrene in developing systems to the benefit of the public. And that has been the basis for the success, also like the banks have done by joining forces rather than fighting each other in making systems that's available for the public. But as Øystein says, that we are maybe good at innovation, but a bit poor on the output. And as time has passed, I think we can now see that we are lagging a bit behind on being as innovative as we was. So based on that, we are a small country, we have scarce resources, and we need to come together. That is why this public-private cooperation is absolutely key for the success. And let's come back to that, but I also think it's a good occasion to talk about how we can improve that further. Because some of the systems, they are also a bit old and they need to be replaced. That's the cost of being a first mover, that some technical changes has passed over the years, and it's a new way of dealing, and just maintaining those systems are quite costly compared to changing them and using modern digitization thinking. So I think it's been a great success. Norway has been able to use our resources by a public that's very keen adopters of new technology as well, and in that sense being able also to export some of our solutions to others. But now, what's ahead?
Very good. Thank you, Pål. And I think I will start with you, actually, Pål. You have seen digital journeys in a number of countries on a number of different continents. Telenor has been active in Eastern Europe, across Asia, across the Nordic countries, in big markets, in small markets. Can you compare and contrast Norway's digital journey with the other countries and the other markets that you have experience with?
Well, I can certainly contrast. I think that's the most appealing rather than comparing, because for Telenor, I think the whole business idea was to bring our quite advanced technology to countries that were not that developed technologically, like Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and Myanmar, for instance, and using our way of doing business in those environments, and actually being part of transformational of the society there. And I think the way we then did this was something that made us one of the 10 biggest mobile operators in the world by using local knowledge and local insight, combining that with our technological insight and knowledge. I think the story behind that was that the local authorities, they really invited and were very positive, had a strong message to us that we were asked to do this in a decent way and transparent way, and helped us along as well as building out a national network is a quite complex issue with many controversials coming along as well. But to be part of such a journey and noticing the transformational effect that had on the countries is amazing. I think we then were able to use the best of our knowledge combined with local insights to achieve exactly that.
Exactly. Kristin. Oh yeah, Øystein, go ahead.
No, sorry for jumping in, but I just wanted to expand a little bit on the perspective when it comes again to the roles of the private and the public sector in developing the digital infrastructure and so on. I think we have seen in Norway that actually it's possible to have the private players literally play an important role in building the infrastructure, securing broadband and internet to the most remote areas, actually, even though we still have some few percentages left. I think we've been very successful in that. And actually, the government hasn't had to spend that much money on that. It's actually been taken to a large extent care of by the market. And then, of course, the government has come in with some subsidies and some support where needed. I think this is one example of how we can actually work well together. On the other hand, I think it's fair to say that in a country where GDP is 60% public sector, we have a large public sector, and maybe the public domain spreads a little bit too wide sometimes. And so as part of this discussion, I think we need to look at how can we best define the roles of the government and the public sector, and what are the roles of the private sector.
I think you're making an important point. And in connection with that, Kristin, I believe it was the old president of the United States, Ronald Reagan. He said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And as Norwegians, I think we don't always get the joke. In a sense, most Norwegians, we like the government. They teach our kids to read and write. They help us out when we're sick. But let me ask you, Kristin, what, if anything, do you think that the government should stop doing, or that the government should do less of?
Oh, where should I start? I could say something I would like less of, and some things I would like more of. It's a dance of balances. I think one of the challenges in Norway is that the state governance is very sectorized. And we are in a situation today where you're actually competing for resources, for people and for money. And the way when you govern a sector like the educational sector or the health sector, to secure that the resources go to your goals is to regulate. You enforce kind of laws that kind of bind the municipal sector to spend the resources exactly in this domain. And the result is that we are over-regulated, and that the local authorities, regional authorities, are only able to abide around 80% of the laws and regulations that they are actually bound by. It's simply not enough people, and quite often these laws are contradictory. So then you sit there which law is more important in this case. You will get someone coming and checking you if you did your job anyways. So I would like more trust from the state to the local authorities, so they are actually able to see, these are my citizens, what do I think is most important in this case, and use the resources accordingly. So that's the one thing. I would like less regulations and more trust. Secondly, I would like the state to work more together across these sectors, because we see that by making solutions digitally that are actually relevant for this sector only, you complicate the world. And it's, the complexity is increased, and many solutions that are quite equal, they are solved many times instead of once. So that's one more important thing I would like more of. I would like more cooperation through these state sectors. And this is, I think it's an awareness, it's a common knowledge, but it's very hard to transform the traditional way of governing. Also, less of thinking you can sit in an office centrally in Norway and design a solution that's going to work all over the country, all over locally. It doesn't work that way. You need to be close enough to where things actually happen and be aware of the real problems. And so we are very happy for the collaboration we actually have with the state and the national authorities through our organization, because this helps bringing us closer together, so we can bring real world people into how to make solutions that actually work.
Thank you very much. I would like to let Katarina know that we have received your question over Zoom. We will get to it in a few minutes. Also, if you have questions, please feel free to go up to the microphone and I will give you the word. But before that, Eivind, your turn.
I think we're having a quite interesting discussion between what public sector should do on infrastructure versus private sector. And in the industry I'm representing, we have a very clear distinguishing between being the commercial arena player or being a provider of infrastructure. I'm leading a company called BITS, and nobody has probably heard of that company outside our industry, but we are providing the Norwegian payment infrastructure. And we are a non-commercial company, which means that we are not making a big profit on having a monopoly of our infrastructure. So the ability to compete in Norway as a bank is based upon that you get a permission from the FSA to operate in Norway, and then you can participate in the infrastructure. And it's non-commercial. And I think that's a key for a nation, to be very clear on what is competitive arena, what is infrastructure arena, and whoever is actually running the infrastructure, it must be been done in a decent way so that you don't get a huge economic loss or deficit on a huge profit on the infrastructure part of the digital highway.
Thank you, Eivind. David, we have received a question over our Zoom channel. It's from Katarina. I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name, but a legal consultant working on the Unidroid project. She would like to address a question to Mr. David Norheim. Given the advanced level of digitalization in Norway and the importance of trust that you highlighted, could you please elaborate more on your journey with eIDAS 2.0 and the European Business Wallet? What have been the main challenges in implementing these solutions, and what are the best practice that you can share by now?
Yes, quite a detailed question. First of all, Norway was very early on recognizes this infrastructure of eIDAS 2.0 with wallets, and we participated in a EU large-scale pilot project called EVC, European Wallet Consortium, where together with our Nordic partners and others in Europe, we started working on a few scenarios, a few pilots, including creating a branch across countries. So we already have, over a couple of years now, experience with piloting. And then we also, within Norway, we've been having quite a few use cases over the sector problem mentioned here that we aren't able to solve fully because of the need for changes in regulation. So we also identified quite a few national projects where we have a large potential using this technology. So where we also worked with municipalities, the Oslo municipal commune. And we've seen, through these pilots, we already got a lot of experience. Now we're also entering the WeBuild consortium, which is an even larger consortium, including also digitization agents in Norway and others, which allows us to see these things together. Our challenge is partly that we already have a well-functioning eID infrastructure today. So we need to figure out how to do that in the future. So we need a process for that which is going on. But we also have challenges with seeing wallets, the two wallets, the personal ID and the business ID together, and making sure that this hangs together in the regulation that comes from Europe. Being an EAA member, we also have a challenge with maybe lagging a little bit behind the rest of Europe, which may make Norway fall behind as in competition as well. So there's a few challenges that we are very much aware of and talking with several ministries about these issues. Yeah.
Thank you, David. I have a follow-up question for you as well, but first, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Let me also dive a bit into not exactly that question, but the challenge here, how to take this further. Because I think when you're building a system across the state for the inhabitants, it's important that you think of having a system that can work across different sectors. And transport data and information across sectors. This is also a first mover disadvantage we have in Norway, that we haven't been able to build such a system because of different sectors. They have built their kind of own systems. So it's a very vital point, I think, for those who's now considering how to do this, that they take that into account, how to make something that work across, because as Kristin says, it's vital that the different sectors cooperate in order to make it efficient for the inhabitants. The second point I would like to address while I have the word is a bit like Øystein said. In Norway, we are very lucky. We have a wealthy state, which also means that we have a big public sector. As you said, like 60% of the mainland economy or GDP is in public sector, and a third of all employees in Norway work in public sector. That means that we need to find a good balance on having the private sector working together with the public sector in these issues. While there's a huge amount of resources in the public, they also need to then address the innovation and use the force of the private sector to the best extent. I think nowadays we are working struggling a little bit with the balance on that to take it further, so we're not lagging behind on the innovation as you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. David, you and several other panelists have underlined the importance of trust when going on a digital journey. And I can kind of see, Norway is a small country, most of the time, your grandfather ran a farm in the same valley as my grandfather, or, there is intuitively often there is a connection. My question to you, maybe to Eivind as well, and to the rest of you, can you scale trust? How can you do this in larger markets?
It's a very interesting one. I'll try to answer as a politician, saying what I want to say rather than answer your own question in a way. But what to learn from us? I think it's not about copying our solutions, it's to copying or try to copy the approach. We have, I think one of the unfair advantages is that we have a trust and braveness of some leaders. I think that's very important. Some of the leaders of the agencies here are brave enough. The other thing is that we have trustful sources, data sources. We have a registry tradition, central registries here in Norway, which with processes that make them high quality, both in the public sector and in the private sector. And there's a Norwegian word called raushet, which is hard to translate, but giving each other leeway so that you don't necessarily end up with a solution here and there, but you know that the other person is going to work on trying to solve that problem. You will face challenges, but if you give them enough leeway, you will overcome them as well, as we've seen in our collaboration with the finance industry. The other one is you need to not be too afraid of touching the private sector. I think that's something that we see different from country to country, that some are very reluctant in talking directly to the private sector, the actual system providers, but talking through associations, pinning them out, and then talk directly to them has been a great success for us. The last I want to say is knowing your own limitations. There was talk about competencies here. I would say resources and innovation. Though my agency got a 5th place or 4th, I don't remember right now, the place in the Norwegian innovation scale last year. We know our limitations. We need to create services that other can innovate on top of, because we will not be fast enough to create the next good services. And that's a limitation you have to accept, and then find a way to give that, give data and services to others. So that's a few points.
Thank you, David. Chrissy, go ahead.
I think one thing that we have a tradition for, and that we have developed even more of the later years, is establishing arenas for collaboration and dialogue, meeting places, both between different state-owned organizations and the municipalities, but also between us as public entities and the private sector. Our organization has established a company that's kind of mutually run by all Norwegian municipalities and regions for common digital solutions. And one of the governance main points is that this company actually should strive to drive innovation also in the private sector. So always kind of balance, think what can actually the private companies do for us, the vendors, and what do we need? Is there anything here we need to do ourselves? Or how can we use the market? This is kind of something we work with all the time, and we have arenas for dialogue. How can we solve this? I mentioned previously this national program for innovative procurement as an example. So all these arenas where we talk together instead of how to solve this for the common good of Norway, instead of talking about each other and behind the backs and criticizing. So I think this is very important, and it's a kind of, I think it's something all other countries can learn from. And this procurement program has actually been copied by Denmark, because they saw this worked. We need this. We need to do the same thing. And I think more countries can learn from this.
Very good. Øystein?
Yes, I just wanted to actually applaud what Kristin is just saying. It's very important that the public sector understands the power it has when it comes to actually being an innovation muscle, in using the power of procurement to actually look for new solutions, not only buying or ordering the old things, the same red bus, but actually describing a need for transportation and how can it be solved. Norway has, the Norwegian public sector has an annual procurement of more than 700 billion NOK. It's amazing, and this has to be used much stronger to actually build a home market. And again, with a small economy, a small country, a very small market actually, all the tech companies are trying to go abroad and to find new markets. They will often be asked, well, have you sold your product in Norway? And if the answer is no, the Norwegian health services did their own thing, they don't want our product, then you have a problem. So I think this is also a very important point.
Thank you, Øystein. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a brave member of the audience, Francis, who has a question. Welcome to us, Francis, and please state who you are and what your question is.
So my name is Francis de Silva, and I work for the same agency. David is my manager. It's a complicated question, so I'm not expecting an immediate answer, but I think you touched on it in the last points, that we should understand the nature of public sector, because the public sector is both governance, or what we call forvaltning, at different levels, and there are government-owned institutions. Thank you. Government-owned institutions, like hospitals, schools, and there are private schools as well. And this complicates the picture. And then you have private sector, which is for-profit, there's non-profit, and there's voluntary sectors as well. So my question is, how do we tackle the value-creating logic? How do we find how is value created? Seems to be the trick to distinguish, and that's where I've seen from participating in these projects that we've done in the public sector, that it is going after value that you can get this collaboration to work. So the question is, how do you communicate this in this complex situation in an easy way? Any thoughts?
Thank you, Francis. Eivind. Oh, everybody. Eivind first, then Øystein, then Paul.
Hello, Francis. In the DESO program that David presented, we have done quite a lot of work on identifying the value. And it's actually quite simple, because it's sitting down with a stopwatch and seeing the processes we are trying to digitalize and try to find where are we saving time, where are we increasing quality, where are we reducing fraud and scam, and try to calculate as precise as we can the value. The clue then is, how do we split the value in a cooperation between David's department and my industry? And then we're getting back to something that David said, that we tried in this program to create a portfolio. So that to say, if you, Christian, can do this project, which is giving value to me, I can do a project that gives value to David, and David can find a project that gives value to Christian. And if you can balance this in a fair way and try to be, David, you used the word raushet in Norwegian, to try to be large to each other, then we can actually try to create projects with less lawyer work and more value creation. At least that's how we have done it in the DESO program, and it's worth looking into.
Very good. Øystein?
Yes, as you said, it's a big and complicated question, and I sort of just wanted to jump in a little bit from my sort of political experience, saying that obviously where to find the balance between the public and private players and sectors is obviously also a political question. So there will be different emphasis and different opinions on how much should be, I mean, because you very correctly distinguish between the regulatory role of the government and then the service provision and providing services. And of course, in the latter area, it's a political question how much should be produced by the government agencies or local agencies and vice versa, and how much should be done by the private sector. But at least I think it's very important to have this debate and to have this also focus on, okay, but what does in any case, what should the government do when it comes to providing a platform, a basis for building services and solutions that can be built by public agencies, but also by the private sector, and preferably, understandably from my perspective, I think more should be done also by the private sector. I don't see any reason why public companies should develop solutions for infrastructure, like in transportation or whatever, that can very easily be done by the market. But I mean, this is a debate, and I think it's important to keep that alive.
Thank you, Øystein. I'll let Paul comment before we take another question.
Briefly, I think it's a very important and interesting question, because it's they talk about the value creation, and to me it's then important to address the different values we're talking about. To me, for the public services, it's about producing services for the public, which are efficient and they are easy to use and they cater for the needs. That's the core role of the public sector. And to me then, it's not having a big IT department as part of that, but it's to see to that these services are as good as they should be for the public. And it's very, very hard for each sector or each agency to maintain a staff of IT personnel that can keep up with the development in the markets. So it's to me, it says itself that it's not efficient and the best way of spending the public money, that you have development in each sector of their systems and so on. So that's where the public-private partnership comes into play and can really be the best solution.
Paul, thank you very much. We have another brave member of the audience who would like to ask us a question. Please go up to the microphone, tell us who you are and your question.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for all your insights and presentations. My name is Vanessa Lemos, and I'm here represented as a citizen, but as well I've been supporting a project that is Interreg, the European Union's interregional cooperation. And it's a project in between Greater Copenhagen going up to the west coast, and actually it can extend to Viken-regionen, that is around Oslo. I've been living in the Nordics for 20 years, 18 years in Sweden, so I know the digital journey from the Swedish perspective, and since 2 years ago in Norway. So I've been like a newcomer, learning to know what DAY3 is, and Skatteetaten, the taxes administration, and I showed an example how it works. My question is related to one aspect that is interoperability. And according to the European Interoperability Framework, it has 4 layers, and it could be one that is a cultural one, the technical, the semantical, the legal, and the organizational. And one of the most challenges that are in the interoperability is the organizational layer, how to communicate in between the silos in the administration, among others, municipalities. And my first question will be, what could the private sector help aiding to have a tailoring with business processes, helping the same citizen, the same individual, or the same business across the sectors? So is that perhaps like more than a question, just that how could be this? How could the private sector help the public sector, ensuring that they are doing all the processes for the same person? That's the first question. The second one, if there's any example and what is the state of art in the healthcare sector to have data portability across the country in Norway, or for the welfare of children. As a former social worker, I have really my heart into the well-being of families and children. Is it any example of or state of art that the same person can be traveling across the country and having its data? Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. I think, Kristin, you've done some heavy lifting within electronic health. Could you help us out a little bit, maybe describing the status for those type of services?
I have a bit of problem of actually getting the key essence of the question. I can talk a lot about healthcare and how you cooperate between the private and public sector there. I would say also regarding healthcare, it's a development towards more active use of private companies. If this was kind of the key of your question. And you use technology actively, and you also have actually support also from the state that when one municipality develop and try out a solution, it is spread to other municipalities for the same thing. But I must, if you have something that was really important to get answered, I had a bit of problem with the sound, so I couldn't hear.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristin. I tell you what, we have 4 minutes left. That means 1 minute for each of you. I suggest we start with David.
Yeah, I'll spend those on trying to answer a little bit of a question, and would like to follow up with you later as well. Kristin mentioned this about arenas. I think that's an important, we have both private, public arenas, and we have public arenas where we talk together between agencies and also between the municipalities level and the state level, and that's one start. This interoperability framework also talks a lot about what we call services that hangs together, or life events, or that's in Norway we identified 7 of these that we try to solve, and that which means that you need to sit together to solve the problem. You can't not do it yourself, and the ministries have kind of delegated those responsibilities down to one or more state organizations, and then we were forced to sit together to think of how to solve that problem. And one very, it would be great to have seen a video of this, but one great service that would announce here 2 weeks ago was how to, when a person in your family dies, how is all that paperwork handled? And that service was put into motion now, and that spans everyone here. And that's, I think that you can identify these very complex solutions and find ways of working together. I think that's key. Thank you.
Ivan?
I would like to spend my last minute on Vanessa's question. Norway has had a painful journey on sharing health information. We have reached a small portal with some health information, and the big problem is GDPR, because it's extremely hard to share that kind of personal information between different legal entities, unfortunately. It's not a technical problem, it's a law problem.
And then I would like to spend my last minute on commenting that, and then maybe answering your question better. Because it's a regulatory problem. It's about information that you give your information to maybe to a doctor, but the doctor doesn't share it on when you need to have assistance from others in the value chain of public health. And it's also, it's regulatory, but it's also a result of this fragmentation of government, where you think that I have my responsibility and I know we need to kind of protect the information that I have, instead of thinking, no, this data, this information belongs to the citizen. And this is a big challenge. Actually, only last week, the health government, they came with a new law that will be discussed in Parliament in the fall, then in the new Parliament, and that opens up and actually says that you have to share the information with others unless it's very special reasons that you need to protect it. I think this can be a very important first step to make health services better, and that we can use data and share health information in the proper way.
Thank you, Kristin. Øystein, very briefly. Paul, very briefly.
3 quick, rather separate points, but point number 1, it's often said that the US innovates and Europe regulates. I'm glad there is a focus on this now, and it also goes for Norway. We need to cut some of the regulation that hinders innovation. Another point, also from our transition barometer, we need, the digitization needs people. And especially in Norway, we have a very big competence gap. So we need to educate more in this area. We need to upskill more in our businesses and organizations. We need to include better. And we also need to welcome international talent to Norway. I think this is very important. My last point is trust. Trust for innovation. I think we have an advantage if we have a trust between the public and private sector, and also between the employers and the employees. If the employee doesn't believe that as soon as I use AI, I will lose my job and I will be obsolete, then there is a basis for the digitization going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul.
Thank you. I also think I'll stick to 3 points. The first being for a success, I think it's imperative that you think across sectors and holistic on the systems you implement. The second is to have a clear political agenda and a clear political will to do so, because it requires a decisive move to move ahead, to really raise the status. And thirdly, then a switch comes as part of it. I think it's important that the private and public sector work together in a way that allows the private sector to make money and the public to focus on their core businesses. But they need to do it in a way that creates a sustainable solution overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you for very good questions. We are 2 minutes above time. I think it was well worth it. Let's give ourselves a hand.